I was learning to kill gods in a mental hospital. Have you ever thought that beneath the neon city lurks monsters from ancient mythology? Have you ever thought that above the moon above men's heads stands the watchman god? Have you ever thought that in the crowded modern cities, there are extraordinary people who walk the earth in place of gods? In the society ruled by human beings, there are countless mysteries lurking. In those forbidden places of life that no one cares about, live the ancient gods. Seraph Michael, Hades, Poseidon. And where did the gods of Bactria go? In this human world, the mystery needs to be cleared away. Chapter 1, Black Satin Wrapped Eyes. It's August. Drip, drip. The cacophony of cicadas mixed with the sound of car horns echoed down the street, which seemed to twist and turn as the sun baked the taupe asphalt. On the side of the road, in the shade of a few trees, several young people gathered, smoking cigarettes and waiting for the traffic lights to change. Suddenly, a young man smoking a cigarette seemed to have found something, and his eyes fell somewhere on the corner of the street. "Arnold, what are you looking at?" the companion beside him asked. The young man named Arnold stared blankly for a while before he said, "Tell me, how can a blind people cross the street?" His companion was stunned, hesitated for a moment and then slowly opened his mouth. Generally, blind people go outside with a company or have guide dogs to guide them, or maybe even relying on voice announcement at the side of the road just like in modern cities. If that is not possible, perhaps they can rely on sound and canes to move little by little? Arnold shook his head. What if they are alone, no guide dog, no voice announcement, and even their cane is used to carry a vat of peanut oil? You think you're funny? His companion rolled his eyes, followed Arnold's gaze, and the next moment his whole body froze. In the opposite corner of the street he saw a teenager wearing black short-sleeved shirt, his eyes wrapped in thick circles of black satin, strictly blocking out all light. In his left hand he was carrying a cheap shopping bag full of vegetables, and in his right hand he was holding a cane over his shoulder like a stick, and at the end of the cane, a vat of yellow peanut oil was shining in the sun. Eyes wrapped in black satin, blind cane on his shoulder, vegetables in his left hand, and his right hand supporting the vat of oil at the end of the cane. This bizarre image immediately attracted the attention of a large wave of people around. "Oh look, that man is so strange. Can you see the road with eyes wrapped with cloth? Didn't you see the cane in his hand because he was blind anyway?" At this age, blind people basically wear sunglasses who still use cloth and satin wrapped around their eyes on hot days, not afraid to cover the panic? Yes, and have you ever seen a blind person not using his cane to walk but to carry something instead? Young people can really play these days. The chirping of the cicadas in the summer could not hide the whispering of the pedestrians around them, who looked at the teenager curiously, discussing about whether he was really blind or not, and watched the flashing red light with some anticipation. Just then a clear voice came from the teenager's side. "Brother, may I help you across the street?" It was a little girl in school uniform, about 12 or 13 years old, with a few drops of sweat on her cheeks, a pair of big black eyes worriedly watching the teenager, pure and simple. The teenager was slightly stunned, turned his head to look in the direction of the little girl, and a smile appeared on his face. He hung the bag of vegetables from his left hand to his right, wiping his sweaty left hand on the corner of his coat, and gently grasped the girl's palm. Splat! The green light came on. The teenager stepped forward and walked across the street with the little girl. The little girl was nervous, looking left and right at the traffic, walking cautiously and timidly. As for the teenager, he's walking steadily. In everyone's eyes, this scene is not like a kind girl leading a blind person across the street, but like a big brother leading a girl instead. The road is not wide. With only 10 seconds passed by, the two people arrived on the other side of the road. The teenager said thank you to the little girl, then the head did not go back to the remote roadway. "He's not blind." Arnold saw this scene, said with certainty, "He definitely can see." A young man behind Arnold, holding his chin in one hand, pondering, then seemed to think of something and suddenly realized. "I see, he's pretending to be a blind monk." Snap. Slapping the back of his companion's head, Arnold swore. "Waste, are games the only thing on your head? Who the fuck is idle enough to pretend to be a blind monk? Don't you want to die?" After a pause of 2 seconds, Arnold added under his breath, "Well, those blind monks used red cloth to cover their eyes, and his costume doesn't look like one either." "Arnold, you said I..." "Shut up." "Oh," he said. As the two quarreled, The young man who had been silent on the sides stared at the back of the teenager's back as he walked away, frowning slightly. What's the matter? Arnold caught his gaze. I know him. You know him. That's right. The young man nodded. When my cousin was still in elementary school, I heard that a student in their school had an accident where he hurt his eyes. He used black satin to cover them, and it was said that there were also mental problems. Mental problems? Arnold was stunned, carefully remembering the situation just now. He looks like he is fine. That was 10 years ago. Maybe he had recovered, but it seemed to be a big deal at the time, and the student dropped out a few days later and was reportedly transferred to a special school for the blind. At this point, another person chimed in excitedly. So what was the accident? Able to make people blind and have mental problems, maybe it is some evil thing. I don't know. He paused. But I heard it was more outrageous than that. Such a pitiful man. Arnold sighed. What's his name? He seems to be called Lin Chia. At sunset, Lin Chia opened the door. Almost immediately, the smell of vegetables from the house entered his nostrils. He sniffed, swallowed, and carried things into the house. Tika. The old door let out a harsh scream, covering the sound of cooking from the kitchen. A middle-aged woman opened the kitchen door, saw Lin Chia carrying bags, exclaimed, and then rushed forward. Xiaoqi, why did you bring so many things back at once? The woman rubbed her hands on the apron, quickly helped Lin Chia to take things, rambling. Such a big vat of peanut oil? Boy, have you misused government subsidies again. Auntie, the subsidies given by the government to the disabled are used for living, and I use it to buy oil. Lin Chia smiled. Nonsense, this money is reserved for your college. How can you use it so carelessly? Let me tell you, Auntie's money from work is actually enough to support the three of us. You don't have to use it carelessly. The woman gently rubbed the oil vat carefully with her hand. Her expression was a little heartbroken, and she whispered, Such a big vat of oil, or the brand. It cost a lot, isn't it? Not waiting for Lin Chia to say something, the women suddenly reacted. No. How did you bring all this stuff back? Oh, I met some kind people on the way and they helped brought them back for me. Lin Chia said calmly. Well, it seems there are still many good people in society. Did you thank them? Of course. Lin Chia changed the topic. Auntie, where is Ajin? He was doing his homework on the balcony. By the way, this year the doctor from the mental hospital has come for a routine checkup and is resting inside. You go to see the doctor. Your aunt will cook first and call you when the food is done. Lin Chia's pace paused slightly, make an O sound, and turned towards the bedroom. Hello, I'm a doctor from Sunshine Mental Hospital. My name is Li. Seeing Lin Chia getting in, a young man sitting on a small bench in the bedroom stood up, gently opened his mouth, his face wearing a pair of large black-framed glasses. Look, Siwenwen. Lin Chia raised his eyebrows. Isn't it supposed to be Dr. Han? Dr. Han was promoted to vice president last year. Dr. Li smiled, a little envy in his eyes. I see. Lin Chia nodded slightly. Dr. Han is of advanced age with superb medical skills. It doesn't come as a surprise for him to be promoted to vice president. Naturally, a young doctor would be replacing him to do routine checkup. Seeing Lin Chia sit down, Dr. Li cleared his throat, pulling out a stack of files from his bag. I'm sorry, because I just came here. I don't know much about your situation. Let me understand it first. Dr. Li spoke apologetically. Lin Chia nodded. Your name is Lin Chia. That's right. You are 17 this year. Yes. Well, it says here that you went blind 10 years ago and were brought to our hospital with some problems. That is correct. Dr. Li paused for a moment. Have you changed your name? No, why do you ask? Lin Chia was stunned. Dr. Li scratched his head a little sheepishly. Ahem. I guess I overthought it. He held out his hand, pointed to the age on the medical record, and pointed to the 3 words 10 years ago. You see, you were blind 10 years ago when you were 7 years old. Your name happened to be Lin Chia, so I'm just guessing maybe you changed your name after losing your sight. Chia means 7 nights. Lin Chia remained silent for a while, shaking his head. No. I have never changed my name, and my parents gave me the name Lin Chia when I was born. That's quite... In the middle of Dr. Li's words, he realized that he was not being very polite and closed his mouth in time. That's a coincidence. Lin Chia's face lit up. Really very coincidental. Dr. Li was embarrassed, but he quickly changed the subject. Well, It doesn't seem to go into much detail about the accident that caused your blindness and mental problems. Can you tell me about it if it's convenient? Lin Chia has not yet opened his mouth, Dr. Li quickly added. I did not mean to be offensive, just want to be more understanding towards the patients to treat them better. Of course, if you do not want to say, I will not force you. Lin Chia sat quietly. Under the black satin, his eyes seemed to be watching Dr. Li. After a while he spoke slowly. There's nothing that can't be said. But you might not believe it and you might even send me back to the asylum. No, don't think of our relationship as doctor and patient. It's just a normal conversation between friends. It won't go that far. I would believe you if you told me that you were pulled into the furnace by an old man, Dr. Li said, half joking. Lin Chia was silent for a moment and nodded slightly. When I was little, I loved astronomy. Then, that night, I lay on the eaves of my old house and looked at the moon. What do you see? The moon rabbit. Dr. Li laughed. Lin Chia shook his head. His next sentence made Dr. Li smile rigidly on his face. No, I saw an angel. Lin Chia opened his mouth seriously, and his hands were still in front of him. A seraph with 6 white wings in a golden glow. Chapter 2 The Angel on the Moon. The room fell silent for a moment. A few seconds later, Dr. Li came to himself. Seraph. That's right. What was he doing? He wasn't doing anything. He was like a golden sculpture sitting in the middle of a huge lunar crater, looking up at the earth as if he were keeping watch. Dr. Li rubbed the corners of his eyes and said, Lin Chia, do you know how far the moon is from the earth? Nearly 400,000 kilometers. Lin Chia said calmly. Nearly 400,000 kilometers. Dr. Li repeated, even with the most advanced telescope, you can barely see the surface of the moon, but you were just lying on the roof of your hometown when you were 7 years old, and you saw an angel on the moon with your naked eyes? It's not me who saw him. Lin Chia quietly opened his mouth. It is he who saw me. I just raised my head and it's like my eyes were being dragged by him through the space and looked at him. So he forced you? Sort of, how else would I see the surface of the moon? I'm not clairvoyant. But if there really is an angel on the moon, why did it go unnoticed for so many years? I don't know. Lin Chia shook his head. Perhaps the seraph does not want to be observed, let alone. Do humans really understand the moon? Lin Seven Nights said very sincerely, so sincerely that Dr. Li immediately wanted to call a car to drag him back to the mental hospital. After all, Dr. Li is a doctor specializing in the treatment of mental illnesses. He has seen a variety of mental illnesses. He summed up a rule in his medical career: the more serious nonsense and the more people sound unreasonable, the more sick. What about your eyes? What happened there? Lin Chia stretched out his hand, gently rubbing the black cloth satin on his eyes, and could not hear emotional fluctuations between his words. That day, I looked at him for a moment and then, I'm blind. Dr. Li opened his mouth, looked down at the case in his hand and fell into silence. Under causes of blindness there were only 4 words. The reason is unknown. So, what really happened back then? Is it true, as Lin Chia said, that he saw the seraph on the moon? How else to explain the sudden blindness? The idea only appeared for a moment and then Dr. Li dismissed it. That was a close call. Almost got away by a mental patient. He could almost imagine how shocked the doctors' faces were when Lin Chia, a young man who had lost his sight 10 years ago, spoke those words in front of them. No wonder the kid is being held against his will, but for all we know what he's saying is what a psychopath would say. There are not a few such people in the courtyard. Some claim to be the reincarnation of the sun monkey and hang from the monkey bars every day. Others think they're a coat rack and stand in the room all night. Then there are those who see everyone as their husband and steal others' buttocks at every turn. Well, the last patient was a greasy 40-year-old man. You're talking about the past, but what about now? What do you think about this? Dr. Li adjusted his mood and continued to follow the procedure. It's all wishful thinking. Lin Chia said calmly, that day I accidentally rolled down from the eaves, hit my head on the ground and probably damaged the nerves in my eyes. Now I'm blind. He had said it many times, expertly and calmly. Dr. Li raised his eyebrows, wrote something in the medical record, and then discussed Lin's daily life. After about 20 minutes he checked the time and stood up with a smile. Well, from my initial analysis there are no major problems. I hope you can adjust your mindset and take care of yourself. Dr. Li said encouragingly as they shook hands. Lin Chia smiled and nodded slightly. Auntie saw Dr. Li leaving and warmly invited him, Dr. Lee, won't you stay for dinner? No, I have another patient to see, so I won't trouble you, Dr. Lee politely declined. He bid farewell to Lin Chia's aunt and then opened the door to leave. The moment the door closed, Lin Chia's smile vanished as if it had never existed. Delusion. What? He muttered to himself. Brother, let's eat. Cousin Yang Jin called out from the kitchen with a dish. Yang Jin is his aunt's son, 4 years younger than Lin Chia, and has just started junior high school. Since Lin Chia's parents missing, he has stayed at his aunt's home, and the two cousins have grown up together. Their relationship is even closer than that of biological brothers. Coming, Lin Chia replied. Lin Chia had just sat down at the narrow table, when he suddenly felt warmth emanating from the soles of his feet. At first it lingered and then a mouth slightly raised. Yang Jin took a look under the table, laughed and cursed. Well, you little black toad, usually so lazy and can barely move when it is time to eat, but when it's time to eat you're faster than anyone else. A small black mangy dog poked out its head from under the table, his tongue hanging out of its mouth. The dog's wheezing breath wafted to Lin Chia's side as it licked his feet, its face a picture of flattery. The 4 of them, 3 people and 1 dog, a family. Simple, difficult, yet strangely reassuring. 10 years. Lin Chia touched the dog's head, picked out a piece of meat from the few pieces on the plate, and put it into Yang Jin's bowl. Gnaw a bone for it. Yang Jin didn't refuse, given their brotherly friendship, saying more would only seem insincere. He was concerned with a different matter. Brother, are your eyes really getting better? Lin Chia smiled. Well, I can see shadows now, but not light. I'll have to wear this black satin wrap for a few more days. What a few days, Xiao Qiya? And told you your eyes are too important. Even if you can see now, don't rush to remove this black satin. What a pity it would be if they were damaged by the sun again. Let's play it safe and wear it for a little longer. Aunt asked anxiously. I know, Aunt, Lin Chia replied. By the way, I saved up some money to buy you a cool pair of sunglasses. I'll show them to you later. Yang Jin exclaimed excitedly, seeming to remember something. Lin Chia smiled and shook his head. Ah, Jin, although sunglasses can block the light, their effect is far worse than the black satin. I can't wear them now. All right. Yang Jin was disappointed. But when my eyes are completely healed, I will take them shopping every day, and then I will buy you a pair and we will do it together. Hearing this, Yang Jin's eyes lit up again and gave a hearty sound. Yes, Xiaoqi, Aunt has arranged for you to transfer. When the semester begins, you can transfer from the special school to an ordinary high school. His aunt seemed to think of something and said, But have you really thought this through? A regular high school is not the same as a special school. In your case, if no accidents, Auntie. Lin interrupted. My eyes have healed, and if I want to be admitted to a good university, I have to stand at the same starting line as others. You boy. Even if you can't get into a good university, it's okay. But your aunt has been supporting you all this time. Brother, I can support you too. Lin Chia's body trembled slightly. His eyes, under the black satin, were unreadable, his lips pressed together and a faint smile was emerged. He shook his head firmly. No words were spoken, but both Yang Jin and his aunt felt Lin Chia's determination. Even the little black dog at his feet rubbed against Lin Chia's ankle. Woof. Chapter 3. Knocking at the door. Back in the room, Lin Chia closed the door. He didn't turn on the light. Already late at night, the little snowflakes outside the window fell on the hard ground. Lin Chia, sitting at the desk, slowly took off the black satin covering his eyes. A handsome young face was reflected in the mirror on the desk. Lin Chia is very good-looking. If he took off the black satin blindfold with his inexplicable cold and deep temperament, Lin Chia is definitely your average handsome man. Unfortunately, his perennial satin-wrapped eyes coupled with his identity as disabled completely covered his looks. In the mirror, Lin Chia's eyes were closed. His brow furrowed slightly, his shut eyelids trembled, and it seemed as if he was trying to open them, clenching his hands as he struggled. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. His body shook for a long time and finally could not bear it. Lin Chia suddenly went limp, gasping for breath. A few drops of sweat streaked across Lin Chia's cheeks, and anger appeared between his brows. By a hair's breadth. He was this close. Why is it always so close? When will he open his eyes again and see the world for himself? He says he can see now. He's lying. He couldn't open his eyes, not even a crack. But he's not lying. Because even with his eyes closed he can clearly see everything around him. This feeling is very wonderful. As if he has eyes all over the body, Lin Chia can perceive everything without dead spots and with more clarity than his original eyes. At first he could not see, and for the first 5 years of his blindness he was no different from other blind people, perceiving the world with only his voice and the cane in his hand. But for some reason around 5 years ago his eyes started to change and he could perceive his surroundings. At first he could only see a few centimeters in front of him, and as time passed he grew to see at more and more of a distance and the vision became more and more clear. 5 years later the range he can see has reached 10 meters. If a normal person can only see 10 meters, then their eyes are basically useless. But for a teenager who has lost the light of the world, those 10 meters can mean everything. Most importantly, the 10 meters he can see are not impeded by obstacles. In other words, within a radius of 10 meters he can see through objects, but on a higher level he can see every particle of dust floating in the air, every part inside a machine and every sleight of hand of a magician under their table. And the source of this ability seems to have been Lin Chia's eyes, which have been shut for 10 years under his black satin blindfold. Although he has this almost supernatural power, Lin Chia is still dissatisfied. He may have 10 meters of absolute vision, but he wants to use his own eyes and personally see the world. This is a teenage obsession at its finest. Although today's attempt to wake up failed, he can clearly feel. It's not too long before I open my eyes. After washing, Lin Chia went to sleep early as usual. Maybe all these years of blind life is not half bad, at least he developed a good habit of going to bed early. But as he lay in bed, subconsciously the image came back to him. Beneath the dark dome of the universe, on the lifeless surface of the moon, the pale earth was reflected in bleak starlight. In the center of the highest and largest crater of the moon, there stood a sculpted figure. The figure stood there quietly as if it had existed since ancient times. Their divine golden glory blossomed, enough to make anyone fall to the ground. Behind him 6 exaggerated wings fanned out, blocking the sun's rays and leaving a huge shadow on the silver-gray rock. However, the real imprint left lingering in Lin Chia's mind is the figure's eyes. Those eyes that were full of divine power burning like a comet, were as dazzling as the nearby sun. He saw those eyes for but a moment and then his world was black again. 10 years ago he told the truth and ended up with a diagnosis for mental illness. But he knows best, he knows what's real and what's illusionary. Ever since he had seen the seraphim on the moon he had known that the world was not as simple as it looked. Slowly Lin Chia fell into a deep sleep. He did not realize that in the moment he fell asleep, 2 bright strands of gold shot out of his eyes and flashed into the distance. In the misty world, Lin walked alone for 7 nights. The fog enveloped the rolling, seemingly endless landscape, creating a seemingly endless void in all directions. Yet with each step he took, the void underneath Lin Chia held still, letting out the rhythmic sound of footsteps. Lin Chia looked down at his body and sighed. This dream again. Knocking on the door every night is tiring, okay? Lin Chia helplessly shook his head, stepping forward again. The next moment the surrounding fog receded, and a strange piece of modern architecture appeared in front of Lin Chia. It was clearly a modern-style building, but when you took a close look at the details, it looked entirely unnatural. The abnormalities being details like the big iron gate engraved with depictions of the gods, or the electric lamp burning like a fireball, or even the carved tiles floating under his feet. It was a mixture of a modern architectural style and a temple from ancient mythology. Neither were alike, but melded together to form an indescribable magnificence. Lin Chia recognized this kind of building which looked very familiar. It was very similar to the Sunshine Mental Hospital which he had spent a year in, and in it slowly grew more similar as more words plastered themselves onto the door. Ragnarok Asylum. That came out of nowhere. Lin Chia shook his head, stepped forward and faced the big iron gate. 5 years ago it was not only his body that suddenly began to change but also his dreams. Every night for 5 years straight he had the same dream, and the focal point of this dream was the mysterious mental hospital of the gods. However, the doors of this mental hospital remained closed and could not be opened in any way. Lin Chia circled around the mental hospital numerous times, with only the big iron door a possible entrance. Outrageously, although the surrounding wall was not very tall, every time Lin Chia jumped up, the height of the wall increased. As for brute force, Even if Lin Chia completely knocked himself out trying to break in, the iron door would not budge. There seemed to be one way in left. Knock on the door. Lin Chia grabbed the ring on the iron door, took a deep breath, and pounded heavily on the surface of the iron door. Dang! With the sound of an ancient bell echoing throughout the mental hospital, the big iron door shook again and did not open. Dang! Again the iron door did not open. Lin Chia, not surprised nor angered, patiently knocked on the door again and again. For the past 5 years he has been deeply aware of the rule of this dream. Except knocking, no other means can open the big iron door. So in this dream he can only knock on the door. There seems to be nothing else to do. Fortunately, in his dream he cannot get tired. Otherwise his body would have exhausted itself quickly. So, like a hard worker, Lin Chia diligently knocked on the door for another night. Chapter 4: The Day of Life. A week later, Songnan No. 6 Middle School. Oh look, is that someone from our school? Why do you have a cloth over your eyes? In my school uniform. It must be from my school. He still has a guide stick in his hand. He looks blind. Strange, why haven't I seen you before? It must be the new high class, right? Don't say. With a few circles of black cloth around his eyes, he looks very handsome. But how do blind people learn? I don't think there are any special classes in our school. I don't know. Unsurprisingly, Lin Chia just walked into the school gate. It attracted a large wave of people's attention. But for this scene, Lin Seven Nights experienced too much. He passed through the school Maple Leaf Avenue, towards the direction of the teaching building. Speaking of it, Lin Chia was ready to face those prickly heads before coming. After all, like many brainless texts, this situation will certainly jump out of a few silly so-called school bullies. To him a sneer, for later he pretend to force the face laid the faux foil. However, the troublemaker did not appear, but many students took the initiative to ask him if he needed help. This let Lin Seven Nights' heart inexplicable some lost. Think so? Our modern students, after 9 years of compulsory education, how can there be so many blind troublemakers? Moreover, even if there are those small groups, now also pay attention to a Jianghu loyalty. Weekdays to help brothers settle things, express a sense of spirit is also okay. If you really go up to bully the disabled, the next day will have to be spit star drowned, completely disrepute. Lin Chia walked up the stairs and soon found his classroom, class 2 of high school. He's been in a special school for 1 year and now he's a transfer student. From the perspective of most movies and TV plays and novels, the students who switch classes are generally synonymous with neglect, isolation and misery. After all kinds of small groups have taken shape in the first year of high school, and if they do not take the initiative, it is difficult to really integrate into the class. Lin Seven Nights is very clear he is not the kind of active person. Even if he was a high school and they get along together, with his temperament of not close to strangers, it is likely that he is still alone. But a person is not bad. At least Lin Seven Nights themselves enjoy this feeling. No one disturbs. Meditation, focus on school. Really want to deliberately let him to get along with others, he will not. Standing at the door of the classroom, Lin Chia took a deep breath, settled down and stepped into the room. The moment Lin Chia walked into the class, the original noisy sound suddenly stopped, and the air was suddenly quiet. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Just when Lin Seven Nights was ready to say something, the class suddenly exploded. Are you Lin Chia? Your seat is ready right there. Lin Chia, can't you see? I'll take you there. Classmate, you walk slowly, there are more things in the corridor. Take your bag back. Have not waited for Lin Chia reaction, there have been several students came forward, carefully took him to his position. There is a tall boy directly took Lin Chia's school bag, carried on his shoulder. Surrounded by many people, Lin Seven Nights' piece came to his seat. Lin Chia. How is that different from the script? Lin Chia, classmates, I am the class monitor Jiang Qian. Anything can find me. A girl in a ponytail patted her chest. My name is Li Yifei. If you go to dinner, give me a shout, I will take you there. Laughed the man carrying his bag. And me, my name is Wang Xiao. Many people crowded around him and greeted him warmly. For a while, Lin Seven Nights actually some at a loss. To be honest, it's a lot worse than he expected. You know me. Lin Seven Nights' expression is strange. The head teacher told us about you. Monitor Jiang Qian replied. However, what impressed us most was your aunt, who stood here that day with a basket of eggs and sent us eggs one by one, asking us to take care of you. Lin Seven Nights in the mind as if there is a thunder ring. The whole person froze in place. He could not listen to what the students said next. He just stared at the classroom. In his mind, he could not help but picture the middle-aged woman with stooped back, carrying a basket of freshly boiled eggs and earnestly asking the students. "Students, help my nephew. Our eyes are not very good, temper and cold. You take more care of him. Little girl, you are so good-looking. My nephew is also handsome. You will like it. 7 nights this child is cold outside and hot inside. As long as you get familiar with him, you will get along very well." Somewhere along the way, the black ribbon became slightly wet. "Auntie," he muttered to himself. Just as we chattered and chatted, a female teacher came in with a book, saw Lin Chia sitting in the front row, first came up to comfort a few words, and then gave a brief introduction to everyone and began to teach. "Open your books to page 91, and today we will talk about the history and dilemma of modern Bactria." It seems that because of the extra 7 nights in the forest, today the teacher omitted the process of skimming the textbook and directly explained the content of the book. 800 years ago, there were more than 200 countries on the earth, distributed in 7 continents and 4 oceans with different customs and cultures. Even in that era when science and technology were not developed, we could still travel to different countries by ship and feel the collision between cultures. However, on March 9th, a mysterious fog appeared out of thin air in Antarctica and spread at an alarming rate, engulfing nearly 98% of the Earth in just 24 hours. The tall buildings built by human beings, the primitive forests that have existed forever, the bottomless oceans. Everything is covered in fog, countless countries are lost in fog, there is no news. But when this strange mist was about to invade the land of Bactria, it stopped. Nobody knows why, but it just stopped weirdly. Over the past 100 years, countless theories and conjectures have been proposed. Some people say that this fog is actually a creature, after swallowing 98% of the Earth, just had enough to eat, so it stopped near the Bactrian. Some say it is because of the special magnetic field in the location of Bactria, which prevents the spread of fog. Some people say that this is my 5,000 years of summer accumulation of deposits in play, protecting this land. The composition of this fog is completely beyond human cognition. Neither light, sound, radio waves, nor other means of detection can penetrate this fog, and no one knows whether other countries that were swallowed up 100 years ago still exist behind this fog. Experts speculate that their chances of surviving the fog are extremely low, because the fog is inhaled into the lungs or comes into contact with the skin surface. They're all dead. In the past 100 years, China has sent numerous well-equipped detection teams into the mists, but not one of them has come back. 50 years ago, China's first satellite was successfully launched. From the pictures transmitted back from space, the whole Earth has turned gray and white, leaving only a pure land in Bactrian. Now Bactria is like an island on this planet, and we may be the last survivor of this planet. For this reason, March 9th, the day the fog appeared, is known as the Day of Survival. Chapter 5. The unrestrained airspace. The crescent moon has risen in the night sky. The bell for the ending of evening self-study class rang. The students walked out of the classroom in 2s and 3s, talking and laughing among themselves under the illuminated crescent moon. This is their most relaxed time after the suffering for almost whole day. There will be no homework or rebuking of teacher after this evening study time. Only surrounded by a few friends to chat on the way to home, and after getting into a warm bath can they comfortably climb onto bed to rest. Is this not bliss? In this scattered crowd, a large team of more than a dozen people moving out of the school compound, neat and steadily toward the school gate. In the center of this crowd, a young man wrapped in black satin in the eye is looking like a stuffing meat of a dumpling wrapped tightly. Such a large team immediately attracted the attention of all the students around. Surely, I can walk back myself, believe me. Lin Chia's mouth was slightly twitching by watching their overprotectiveness towards him. Lin Chia helplessly said by slightly opening his mouth, I can see slyly by perceiving shadows around me, but my eyes cannot endure the light. Don't say anything about it, classmate Lin. Jiang Qian interrupted Lin Chia's words and said in stern words, we promised your aunt that we would take good care of you, and we will do it. Yes. And Lin Chia, he is right, as our houses are in the same direction, so it will be on the way. Said another student. I'm on my way too. Lin Chia. Honestly, he prefers to stay isolated from other. Being in the dark for a long time feels familiar. He is not used to this feeling of being cared by too many people, which makes him feel quite uncomfortable. Of course, Ant and Yang Jin do not count in his introverted nature because they are his family. But seeing that they were showing kindness earnestly towards him, he could not say anything to them and could only follow with the crowd and move forward. I'm going to turn right at that corner ahead of me, but I can walk with you a little longer. I'm about to turn here. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. As they were moving farther away from the school, the students around Lin Chia began to diminish. One by one they said goodbye to him and left when they found that they were near their respective way to home. A few minutes later, Lin Chia's side had only 5 people. The original noisy atmosphere was gradually became quiet. The space around Lin Chia soon became abundant and he breathed a long sigh of relief. Say, will the mist really rise again and swallow up Bactria? Li Yifei, carrying a bag, curiously turned his head and asked. Didn't you listen to the experts? The probability of fog recovery is very small. Perhaps for the last 100 years the situation will not change. As for how will be after 100 years. We won't be around then anyway, so why bother? Jiang Qian rolled her eyes. Jiang Qian, you know that experts often highlight how unreliable things can be. If we truly accepted that reality, we might realize that summer was consumed by fog rather than lost in an explosion of experiences. So that's why you're just messing around and not concentrating on your studies? Jiang Qian walked to Li Yifei in front of. I have to remind you, Teacher Wang has said that if you take the last place in this exam, you will move the table to the edge of the podium. I know. Li Yifei smiled. But I really don't think the fog will come back. Walking in front, Wang Shao suddenly added, after all, the fog is just a natural phenomenon. After reaching a certain critical intensity, it will gradually subside, just like the ice age when the glacier covers the land. As the temperature rises, it will slowly subside and a new era will follow. I know what you mean by that. Isn't it called the natural disaster theory? There's a lot of recognition now. Jiang Qian nodded. And what if this fog is not a natural phenomenon? At this time Lin Chia, who had been silent all the way, suddenly opened his mouth. Wang Shao was stunned at first and then smiled. Lin Chia, you don't really believe those so-called theologians' remarks that this fog is related to supernatural forces? It's the 21st century. We have to believe in science. There are no gods and ghosts in this materialistic world. A student named Lu Yuan interjected. Lin Chia did not answer whether there was anything in the world beyond the understanding of science. He knew it best in his heart, but there was no need to say these things to outsiders. I think the world would be more interesting if there were such things, Li Yifei muttered. Why so much useless discussion is going on? These things are not our concern. Rather than obsessing over whether the fog will recover, it is better to wait until the survival day 3-day holiday to sleep in the reality. Jiang Qian smiled. Yes, holidays are the real thing. At the moment, the old town of Songnan City. A man is carrying a sign, calmly walking in the lonely and dim street. The old street lights shed dim light, will elongate his back. He glanced at his phone, walked to a narrow street corner and stopped. This is it, he muttered, lowered the sign from his shoulder and straightened it. Under the flashing street lamp, the shadow of the sign flickered and flickered, and on the black background several bright red characters stood out. No traffic ahead. The man leaned under the street lamp, lit himself a cigarette, took a hard inhale and turned on his headset. Captain, the third sign is in place. Roger that. Here we go. With a cigarette in his mouth, the man stepped in front of the sign, put his thumb on the tip of his teeth and gave it a hard bite. A drop of blood beads spilled from the wound. The man squatted down with a bloody thumb in the front. Prohibited, 4 characters on a long horizontal line. His eyes solidified, an inexplicable momentum to him as the center burst out. He looked up at the dark night sky and murmured in a voice that only he could hear. Forbidden market. No ring airspace. The next moment the bright red blood stains on the sign in front of him quickly faded, as if it had been absorbed, and then the 4 big words, "No ahead," flashed red. And then gradually restore the original. The man sat down on the ground with a long sigh of relief and some complaints. Shit, it's gutted again. At this moment, if someone looks down on Songnan City from the sky, they will find that near the old city, 3 lights flash, and then with these 3 lights as the apex, quickly outline a dark red equilateral triangle. At the moment the triangle was formed, the covered half of the old city was like being erased from the map. gradually disappearing. From the ground, however, the old town is still the same old town. At the same time, in the center of this triangle, 6 black and red cloaks streak across the sky like lightning. The man at the head looked up at the dark red sky and reached behind him and grasped the handle of the knife, his eyes narrowing slightly. Operation Ghost Face Purge, begin. Chapter 6: The Ghost Man. Outside the old town. The man who had just opened the forbidden market sat beside the sign, looked back at the half of the old city like a canvas, shook his head helplessly, took out his mobile phone from his pocket and began to play Xiao Xiao music. Brother, why are you sitting here in the middle of the night playing with your phone? Aren't you afraid of catching a cold in your ass? Before long, a pedestrian came across the street and was delighted to see this picture. The man looked up at him, then lowered his head and continued to operate. Nothing to do, idle panic. The pedestrian smiled, took a cigarette out of his pocket and handed it to the man. The man waved his hand and said, "Working hours, no smoking." "Hey, you squatting on the street playing with your phone, this is also work?" The passers-by were delighted. All right. Shrugging his shoulders, the passerby got up and walked into the street behind the man. "Where are you going?" The man spoke suddenly. "Go home. You can't go back, at least not now." The pedestrian raised his eyebrows. "What do you mean?" "This road is blocked now. You can't go back until it clears." The man pointed to the sign behind him. The pedestrian followed his finger and saw the sign inexplicably standing in the middle of the road, and was about to say something when he saw the faint light on the 4 big words, "No traffic ahead." The pedestrian's eyes glazed over. A few seconds later he stiffly turned, step by step toward the road, came and walked back, eyes full of confusion. The man seemed unsurprised, and just as he was about to resume his game, another man's voice suddenly began to sound on his headset. "Zhao Kongqing." The voice sounded an instant. The man suddenly sat up from the ground. The face of leisure and sleepiness disappeared, replaced by absolute seriousness. "Here we go. Captain, what's the matter?" "Something went wrong. This group of Ghostface people were promoted to a Ghostface King, and when we were besieging other Ghostface people, they severely injured the Red Tassels and escaped from the scope of the Forbidden Market from the sewer." "Ghost Noodle King?" Zhao Kongqing's face changed. "Which direction did he run?" "I'll cut it off." "No, Empty City, you are not good at fighting. You will not win the Ghostface. He will be chased by me." Zhao Kongqing gasped. "Then I?" After the Ghostface King fled, 2 more Ghostfaces took the opportunity to escape into the sewer, and others are cleaning up the remaining Ghostfaces. "Which way?" "Southeast." "Good," said Hermione. With his eyes blazing, Mr. Zhao raced to the other end of the street, got into a black van, stomped on the gas and sped away amid a buzz. In his passenger seat, neatly folded in a black and red cloak, and a straight knife in the sheath. "All right, I'm going to turn this way." "I'm going." Wang Xiao stopped and turned to the 4 people behind him. At this time, Li Yifei seemed to suddenly think of something and opened his mouth. "Wang Xiao, if I remember correctly, is your home next to the old city?" "Yes, what's the matter?" "Nothing. Be careful on your way back." Wang Xiao's mouth twitched slightly, rolled his eyes. "You have something to say, not to say half of it, to hold it in, make people feel strange." Li Yifei hesitated for a moment. "I heard that the old city is not peaceful recently. There are psychopathic killers." "Psycho killer? Really?" Jiang Qian did not believe it. "Of course it's true." Li Yifei looked around and lowered his voice. "You may not know this, but more than a dozen people have died in the old city in recent days." "A dozen people? It can't be. If there had been such a fuss, it would have been in the news." Wang Xiao shook his head. "Hey, that's not possible. I'm telling you, there's something weird about this. Someone from above forced it down, and I wouldn't know about it if my dad didn't work for the police." "Strange? What is it?" "It is said that..." Li Yifei paused and lowered his voice a little. "It is said that the whole face of those who died was stripped off, leaving only a mass of bloody flesh and protruding eyes, and the method was extremely vicious." Slightly cool night breeze blowing. Heard this sentence. A few people only feel a cold from the bottom of the feet straight to the head. "Li Yifei, are you sick talking like that at night?" Jiang Qian's face was pale, subconsciously looking around the quiet street, angry. "Here is close to the old city, belongs to the remote area of Tsangnan City. The evening self-study class again to nearly 10 o'clock. Even a pedestrian on the road, with Li Yifei's words really make people a little scary. Not only she but also Wang Xiao and Lu Yuan, the two big men, were a little afraid. Wang Xiao glanced at the narrow path he was about to take and suddenly felt guilty. If Li Yifei's words just make people a little afraid, then Lin Chia's next words directly let them scalp numbness. Lin Chia thought for a moment and opened his mouth. Are you sure? Are these things done by people? 7 nights you, Jiang Qian delicate body shudder. Wang Xiao and Lu Yuan mouth slightly twitching, looking at Lin 7 Nights' eyes suddenly strange up. Good you, a busy-eyed Lin 7 Nights. Never thought the deepest hiding actually is you? Li Yifei looked at Lin Chia in surprise. Do you think so? Shut up, shut up, shut up. Jiang Qian really cannot stand it. Hand in Li Yifei arm hard twist. The latter on the spot on the pain called out. Don't tell ghost stories in the middle of the night. I want to go home later. Li Yifei covered his arm, grinned in pain and hid in a whisper. This is not a ghost story. Wang Xiao shrugged his shoulders. Not with you in this bullshit. I do not believe in these things anyway. Go. Wang Xiao's figure gradually disappeared into the narrow alley. Jiang Qian glared at Li Yifei again, walked a few steps forward and suddenly stopped. She sniffed hard, frowning slightly, with a little doubt in his eyes. He turned and said, Do you smell something bad? Stink. You know, the stench of something rotting. I don't smell it. How about you, Lu Yuan? Neither did I. EW. Lu Yuan and Li Yifei had not finished speaking. His face suddenly changed and he covered his nose fiercely and looked around in horror. Lin Chia was about to say something when a disgusting smell suddenly poured from his nasal cavity, which felt like a piece of meat that had been rotting for more than 10 days had been thrown into the septic tank, mixed with a dozen rotten eggs, and just a sniff made the stomach violently tumble. It was the stinkiest smell Lin had ever smelled in his long life. As for Jiang Qian, who had the most sensitive nose, she squatted and vomited directly. Damn, what stinks? Li Yifei shouted, holding his nose. I don't know. Lin Chia's brow wrinkled slightly and after a moment he reached out his hand to point to the alley Wang Xiao had left. But from the direction the smell is traveling, it seems to be coming from there. The next moment, a pitiful scream echoed through the silent night sky from a distance. Chapter 7 I Want to Live. Wang Xiao. Li Yifei. 3 people heard this familiar voice, shouted in unison. The 3 men looked at each other and started to run to the small laneway Wang Xiao left. Lin 7 Nights stood alone in place, frowning at the dark path, looking a little dignified. He didn't know what was happening, but he had a bad feeling in his heart. Outside the old town, psycho killers, creepy stench, screaming. Something is wrong. He hesitated in place for a while, after a psychological struggle, helplessly sighed, and finally picked up his guide stick and rushed towards the roadway. If it is normal, Lin Chia encountered this situation, absolutely not to meddle, but will start to run in the opposite direction. How far to run? Well, if they're screaming, then it can't be good. Not good. That means trouble. Robbery, murder, witnessing a murder scene. Any of them. Lin 7 Nights does not want to have anything to do with them. He wasn't that curious to know what was going on. I don't have a lot of compassion. I don't want to be a hero. And most importantly, he doesn't fight. What if he's out there dead? But this situation is different. Although Lin 7 Nights is not very want to admit, but Wang Xiao distress with him cannot get away. If they had not taken the initiative to escort Lin 7 Nights home, perhaps Wang Xiao would have gone back from another road, or went back a few minutes earlier, and would not have encountered this situation. He doesn't like being nosy, but he doesn't like being indebted even more. At any rate, he would at least go and see what was going on as a courtesy and run away if there was any danger. Lin Chia was blindfolded, but the speed was not slow at all, and the closer he came to the place where the scream came, the tighter his brow was. The smell is getting stronger. A second scream came from around the corner. Only this time it was a woman's voice. Jiang Qian. Lin 7 Nights fierce in the corner of the lane to stop the body, his spiritual perception within the scope of Jiang Qian. 3 figures. Not far in front of him, Jiang Qian is limp on the ground, mouth wide open and scared, looking ahead. The whole person is shaking. In front of her, Lu Yuan and Li Yifei are like stone sculptures frozen in there, eyes staring at the front, also trembling. Beyond, Lin 7 Nights cannot feel. He could not open his eyes, he could not see the world with his own vision, and his mental range of perception was only 10 meters, so it was an extremely awkward situation. Within 10 meters he sees everything. Beyond 10 meters he is a real blind man. Jiang Qian, 3 people see what will be scared like this? Although he could not see, his hearing was very sensitive and he could clearly hear the sound of Sisu not far away. It was like someone was nibbling on something very wild and with relish. Sounds like a little nigger eating a bone. What happened? Lin's 7 Knights' lower voice asked. Jiang Qian seems to be taken aback by the appearance of Lin's 7 Knights. Hands flustered grasp his clothes. Teeth are trembling. The monster. The monster is eating Wang Xiao's face. Lin Qia's face suddenly changed. Run. Lin's 7 Knights and Li Yifei roar at the same time. The word just jumped out. Lu Yuan is like a crazy wild dog, fierce back to run. Was Lin Qia's shoulder hit a stumbling and quickly climb up, desperate to run. The monster. Help. Help. Monster. He screamed loudly as he ran. Lin's 7 Knights was caught off guard by him, so a stumbling figure, just steady body, the distance came a dull crash. It was as if a brown bear had stomped the ground and galloped in his direction. Jiang Qian's pupils suddenly contracted, and she did not know where the strength came from. She climbed up from the ground like lightning and ran away screaming. As for Li Yifei, he ran as soon as he shouted out the running word, and the speed was faster than Lu Yuan, who pushed the Lin 7 Knights. Had it not been for Lu Yuan, the beast that had just hit Lin Qia stumbling, he would have run a long way now. But it was such a momentary delay that he had already fallen in the end like Jiang Qian. At this time it seems that everyone has forgotten the identity of Lin Qia disabled, and the classmates who just vowed to escort him back have completely left him behind. Oh, not exactly behind him, considering we just bumped into him. Lin's 7 Knights' heart sneer. But now he had no time to worry about these things, because after he had run a few steps, something came within 10 meters of his mental perception. It's like a person, but it's not like a person. It is said that it is like a human because it has limbs and a head like a human, and it is not like a human because it is like a hyena. At the moment all 4 limbs are running on the ground, and its body is also big like a brown bear. On top of that there was a grimace on its head. Pale twisted. The long pointed scarlet tongue was like a long snake, extending half a meter from the mouth and wriggling flexibly. Lin's 7 Knights' face suddenly ugly up. Its speed is so fast that in a few steps, it flies from 10 meters away to the range of its own mental perception, and it is still approaching itself at an amazing speed. Lin Qia believes that even if the world's sprint champion comes, he will definitely not run it. Lin's 7 Knights' heart calculated the distance from here to the roadway outside. A heart suddenly sank. With the speed difference between the two, he couldn't get out of the lane without being overtaken. What else is there to? Lin Qia's brain rotates rapidly, perceiving all objects nearby, and wants to use something to block the monster behind. Suddenly his spirit fell on the school bag behind Jiang Qian. Smash the bag. Hold it off. Lin's 7 Knights roar. Jiang Qian, in the side of Lin's 7 Knights, a shock. Eyes flashed a touch of cold on. She screamed, yanked down the bag. Toward Lin's 7 Knights hit. Lin's 7 Knight pupil suddenly contracted. He never thought that Jiang Qian would actually start on him. When Lin's 7 Knights' reaction, the bag has fallen heavily on his chest. Through spiritual perception, Lin Qia can clearly see Jiang Qian's expression. She looked pale like a frightened rabbit, her face was full of terror, but her eyes had never been more ruthless. Are you Lin Qia? Your seat is ready over there. Lin Qia classmates, I am the class monitor Jiang Qian. What things confine me? What impressed us most was your aunt, who stood here that day with a basket of eggs and sent us eggs one by one, asking us to take care of you. We promised your aunt we'd take care of you, and we will. The shy and kind monitor seemed to turn into a hysterical demon at this moment. She just looked at Lin's 7 Knights. The eyes have guilt, there is madness, there is ruthless. Yes, I am the monitor. I said I'd help you more. I promised your aunt I'd take care of you. I can teach you to do tests, take you home, help you with meals. This is all fine. But no. I want to live. Then, please go to hell. At this moment time seems to have stalled, Lin's 7 Knights looking at Jiang Qian's eyes as cold and deep as night. Dropping a bag won't stop a monster for a few seconds, but dropping a person, you have a better chance of surviving. This is Jiang Qian's choice. School bag is not heavy, kinetic energy is not large. Caught off guard, but will Lin's 7 Knights' body smashed a meal. Behind him, the rapidly approaching monster sprang up and pounced on the last Lin's 7 Knights. Between lightning and stone, Lin's 7 Knights smiled. He laughed cold. His back is like a long eye, anticipating the trajectory of the monster. Crouching down, accurately avoiding the monster's onslaught. At the same time, the guide stick he had been holding in his hand swept forward like lightning, and the tip of the stick hit Jiang Qian's ankle. Jiang Qian exclaimed. The whole person lost his center of gravity, fell to the ground. A heavy, dark shadow suddenly fell on her. The next moment the night was scarlet with blood. Chapter 8. His eyes. Jiang Qian is dead. Lin's 7 knights witnessed the whole process of her death. The monster came down from the sky, sliced her neck with his fingernails like tofu, and then devoured her ecstatically. Until the last moment, Jiang Qian's eyes are staring at Lin's 7 knights, which is full of panic and resentment. Lin Qia's spirit clearly perceived all the details, gastric juices rolled, almost spit out. Although after a lot of suffering and hardships, his mind has long been more mature than his peers, but such a bloody picture he has never seen. And now is not the time to throw up. Lin's 7 knights without any hesitation, while the monster gnawing Jiang Qian body, turned his head toward the other side of the roadway to run. The original retreat has been blocked by the monster, then he can only go in the opposite direction, to the direction of Wangshao victims. The monster seems to be more interested in the body, did not catch up, which makes Lin's 7 knights slightly relieved. He did not know what the monster was, but there was no doubt that it did not belong to the category of man, nor to the category of beast known to man. If it was a radiation-mutated ape, he might believe it. The size, the strength, the speed, there's nothing a normal human can do. But only, maybe. In this fog-covered world, having witnessed the existence of seraphim with his own eyes, he does not believe that science is the only truth in the world. He believed in the existence of mystery. And Lin's 7 knights always felt. The image of this monster seems to have been heard of somewhere. Just when he was thinking, something entered his mental perception range. Lin's 7 knights, a sudden break, a sudden stop body. His breathing became heavier and heavier. 10 meters in front of him, the monster appeared again. Lin's 7 knights can be sure that this is not just that one. They're pretty ugly, but they're definitely not the same one. The most obvious evidence is that in the arms of this monster holding the dead body of Wangshao, is still continuing to eat. At this time, Wangshao's face has completely disappeared, leaving only a blur of flesh and blood. If not for his clothes are more special, Lin Qia may not recognize who this is. This is the second monster. The same one that killed Wangshao. When he was with Jiang Qian and others before, he did not see the picture 10 meters away, subconsciously thought that there was only a monster, but now think about it, he was wrong. From the behavior of the monster that killed Jiang Qian, it can be seen that this monster prefers to eat dead bodies, rather than chase living people, or Lin's 7 knights cannot escape the scene. But in the beginning, after Wangshao died, there was a monster chasing Lin's 7 knights. They ran. It only goes to show that there's already another monster feasting on Wangshao's corpse. A roadway, 2 monsters completely blocked Lin's 7 knights all the way back. Lin Qia's face was very pale, and a long-lost emotion called despair emerged in his heart. In 17 years, there were only 2 times when he truly desponded. Once, 10 years ago, when he saw those eyes on the moon. The other time right now. In front of him, the monster who had eaten his face threw away Wangshao's body like garbage, turned to look at Lin Qia, and licked the blood of the corners of his mouth with his long scarlet tongue. At this moment, Lin's 7 knights want to curse. Fuck, why am I so unlucky again? When I was a kid, you could climb a roof and see the seraph. Blinded and fell off the roof. Thought he fell out of his mind and spent a year in a mental hospital. Now Laozi has finally come through and is ready to study hard and take the college entrance examination to meet a new life. And I ran into you, you ugly bastard? Other people don't meet once in their lives. I meet 2 at once. It's crazy. Under the pressure of death, the anger and grief that have been repressed in Lin Qia's heart for several years are like volcanoes, gushing out. This anger is burning, the fear in his heart is compressed smaller and smaller, and a fierce force from nowhere directly bursts out. He clutched his guide stick tightly, his chest heaving violently as he faced the waiting monster. At this moment, it seems that in front of him is not a monster who has just eaten people, but all the grievances and setbacks he has suffered in the past 10 years. Even Ant and Yang Jin do not know what kind of anger is hidden in the heart of this repressed teenager for 10 years. He's not willing. Perhaps even he did not find that under this agitation his eyes, which had been closed for 10 years, trembled violently and seemed to be about to open. That declined. The monster looked at the Lin 7 knights of fine skin and tender flesh, like a rogue who saw the beauty, screamed and bounced up. Fuck, I'm not afraid of you. Lin Seven Knight's low roar, carrying a guide rod, unexpectedly meet the monster leaped to rush. The distance between the two is rapidly shrinking. At the moment when the monster's claws were about to cut the throat of Lin Chia, the latter suddenly turned sideways and dangerously avoided this claw. However, although Lin Chia can perfectly grasp the monster's track, but their own physical quality is still poor, this claw wiped his temple across, leaving a light blood mark. At the same time the black ribbon was cut open and with the wind whipped up, I do not know where to go. Lin Seven Knights closed his eyes, seized the opportunity, burst a drink, the hand of the guide rod toward the monster's belly to stab. Snap. The crisp voice sounded, Lin Seven Knights only feel a light hand, and then a huge force came from behind, the monster's tail directly pull it away. Lin Seven Knights was drawn on the ground to play a few roles, endure the pain to climb up. Spiritual perception of the hand of the guide rod has broken into two. The guide rod is used for guiding the blind. The material is not particularly solid, and the monster is very hard together, naturally cannot be used. Fuck. He swore angrily and threw half of his guide stick to the ground. I finally got a chance and I blew it. The break of the guide rod, like a fuse, will directly detonate the emotions of the whole person. Lin Chia. He stood there, his hands tightly clenched, nails are trapped in the flesh, leaving a blood mark. I don't agree. He roared. At this emotional moment, a strange feeling suddenly came over him. Like spring breeze rain, water comes naturally, a cool flow from his heart, flow into the mind of the silted place, a gentle touch. That layer of window paper then answered the call to open. Lin Seven Knights only feel that there is a sun in his body burst out. The unprecedented heat filled his whole body. The eyes under the eyelids are like being roasted, scorching. And so, naturally, he opened the eyes that had been closed for 10 years. And the last thing these eyes saw was another pair of eyes. The eye of the seraph. Suddenly, a brilliant column of hot light erupted from the laneway on the edge of the old city, straight to the sky. This moment, dark night as bright as day.